Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12, Dhruva Maharaj goes back to Godhead, text number 16 onwards. Atmastraya pati suhrido balam riddha kosham mantah puram parivihara bhuvascharamya bhumandalam jaladhi mekhalam akallaya kalopasrishtamiti saprayayo vishalam. Thus Dhruva Maharaj at the end left his kingdom, which extended all over the earth and was bounded by the great oceans. He considered his body, his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury, his very comfortable palaces, and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds to be the creations of the illusory energy. Thus, in due course of time, he retired to the forest in the Himalayas known as Badrikashrama. So, in due course of time, he retired in Badrinath, Badrikashram. In the beginning of his life, when he went to the forest in search of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj realized that all bodily conceptions of pleasure are products of the illusory energy. In the very beginning, of course, he was after the kingdom of his father, and in order to get it, he went to search for the Supreme Lord. But he later realized that everything is a creation of the illusory energy. From the acts of Srila Dhruva Maharaj, we can understand that somehow or other, if one becomes Krishna conscious, it does not matter what his motivation is in the beginning, he will eventually realize the real truth by the grace of the Lord. So by the grace of the Lord, if somehow one becomes Krishna conscious, so he realizes the real truth. And the first truth is this material world is nothing but illusory energy. There is no real pleasure here. It's all illusion. It's all Maya. And the real pleasure is only in the spiritual world, only in doing devotion service. In the beginning, Dhruva Maharaj was interested in the kingdom of his father, but later he became a great devotee, Mahabhagavat, and had no interest in material enjoyment. The perfection of life can be achieved only by devotees. Even if one completes only a minute percentage of devotion service and then falls down from his immature position, he is better than a person who fully engages in the fruitive activities of this material world. In fact, this was a shloka in first canto. It was spoken by Narad Muni, that even if somebody gives up all material activities, it means he doesn't fulfill all his dharmas, and he just renounces everything and makes a little progress in bhakti, and then again he falls down. But still, it is much better than fully engaging in fruitive activities, because whatever bhakti or whatever yogic advancement we have made, that remains with us always. But whatever material advancement we make, that will be taken away at the end of this life. And we cannot reclaim it. It's not like if I leave millions of dollars in my bank account and next life when I come back, I said, oh no, that account number, I give you the account number and you give me the money. It's not going to happen. You're going to start from scratch. But not in the yogic process, not in bhakti. Tasyam Vishuddha Karna Shiva Vari var vigaya badvasanam jitam run manasa hritakshaha stule dadhar bhagvat pratirupa etad dhyayastad vyavahito vyasrijat samadho. In Badrikashram, Dhruv Maharaj's senses became completely purified because he bathed regularly in the crystal clear purified water. He fixed his sitting position and by yogic practice controlled the breathing process and the air of life. In this way his senses were completely withdrawn. Then he concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, which is the exact replica of the Lord, and thus meditating upon him entered into complete trance. Here is a description of the Ashtanga Yoga system to which Dhruv Maharaj was already accustomed because he performed this Ashtanga Yoga in Madhuban also. Ashtanga Yoga was never meant to be practiced in a fashionable city. Dhruv Maharaj went to Badrikashram and in a solitary place alone he practiced yoga. He concentrated his mind on the Archa Vigraha, the worshipable deity of the Lord, which exactly represents the Supreme Lord. And thus thinking constantly of that deity, he became absorbed in trance. Worship of the Archa Vigraha is not idol worship. The Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Lord in a form appreciable by a devotee. Therefore, devotees engage in the temple in the service of the Lord as Archa Vigraha, a form made of sthul or material objects such as stone, metal, wood, jewels, or paint. All of these are called sthul or physical representations. Since the devotees follow the regulative principles of worship, even though the Lord is there in his physical form, he is non-different from his original spiritual form. Thus the devotee gets the benefit of achieving the ultimate goal of life. That is to say, becoming always absorbed in thought of the Lord. This incessant thought means non-stop thought of the Lord as prescribed in Bhagavad Gita makes one the topmost yogi. So Dhruv Maharaj went to Badrikashram, gave up everything, all his kingdom, all the power, prestige, all the opulence, and he went to Badrikashram. He would bathe every day in the crystal clear water and his mind was purified. And then he would do his breathing process, control the breathing process, and then went into Samadhi. In Samadhi, he wasn't meditating on some light or the flame or something else or on void. He was meditating upon the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord. So Archa Vigraha. So this is the real yogic process or Hatha Yoga system. It's not like these days it's fashionable that you just meditate on whatever you like or meditate on light or meditate on the point of light or the flame or whatever. No. Nowhere in the scriptures it is mentioned. These are all concoctions these days they have developed because they don't want to worship the form of the Lord. It's just too much trouble for them. Bhaktim haro bhagvati prabhajan jasram anand bashpa kalya muhuradya manah viklibdya manya hrideha pulka chitango nato manam smarad asaviti muktalingaha. Because of his transcendental bliss, incessant tears flowed from his eyes. His heart melted and there was shivering and standing of the hairs all over his body. Thus transformed in a trance of devotional energy, in a trance of devotional service, Dhruv Maharaj completely forgot his bodily existence, and thus he immediately became liberated from material bondage. Due to constant engagement in devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the deity, etc., as prescribed in 9 varieties, there are different symptoms which appear in the body of a devotee. These 8 bodily transformations, which indicate that a devotee is already liberated within himself, are called Ashta Sattvic Vikar. So there are 8 symptoms, there are 8 transformations that happen. So these transformations are the state of being stunned, perspiration, standing of the body hairs on the end, faltering of the voice, trembling, fading of body's color, tears, and devastation. Devastation in the sense that he can fall down unconscious. So these are all 8 Ashta Sattvic Vikar. Sattvic means it's in complete ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy. Then these vikar or these transformations happen in the body. And this happens because if somebody receives something spiritually so enlightening, so enlivening, so something beyond expectations, then one just becomes stunned, perspire, our bodily hair stand on end like he gets goosebumps. He can start crying, faltering of voice, trembling. But same Ashtavikar can happen also if one is in too much of fear. But it won't be sattvic. It will be completely in ignorance, tamasic. Or some vikar can happen also when one becomes angry. But those are material. This is completely spiritual. That he was seeing the Lord, and then he was realizing, and these transformations were happening in the body. And that's what in the morning when we sing the bhajan, so romancha that happens, romancha kampan, all these things happen in the body when one performs devotional service. And has reached that stage of, actually this is the symptoms of bhav bhakti. When at the stage of bhav bhakti. So even before bhav bhakti, we can get, or by mercy of Krishna, he can let us experience not the full manifestation of this vikar or transformation, maybe a glimpse of it, so that we understand what is bhakti, what are we going to expect if we come to the stage of bhav bhakti. It'll be completely out of this world experience. So many times when we go, after a while we have gone to the temple and seeing the deities, sometimes devotees start crying. Those who don't understand, they can say this is not bhav, but is bhavukta or sentimentalism or just emotions. But it could be the glimpse of that bhav that by mercy of Krishna we can experience. Or many times, devotees would happen when they get something unexpectedly. When they meet somebody, some devotee or somebody, and then they never expected it. Of course, the emotions will come out because we are not rocks, we are not stones. We have emotions. The emotions will come out, especially like goosebumps or faltering of voice. There could be perspiration. There could be anything. But these are all Ashta Sattvic. Sattvic means pure goodness, transformations. And Prabhupada explains, when a devotee completely forgets his bodily existence, he should be understood to be liberated. He is no longer encaged in the body. The example is given that when a coconut becomes completely dry, the coconut pulp within the coconut shelf separates from the bondage of the shell and the outer covering. By moving the dry coconut, one can hear that the pulp, which is no longer attached to the shell or to the covering. Similarly, when one is fully absorbed in devotional service, he is completely disconnected from the two material coverings, the subtle and the gross bodies. So when one is fully absorbed, he is completely disconnected from the subtle and gross bodies, coverings. Also, those who are conditioned, completely conditioned souls, the subtle body and the gross body and the soul, and subtle body, like Kapil Dev explained, the consciousness is also part of subtle body. So the whole thing is so amalgamated with the soul because of the consciousness, thinking of myself as this body. When we make spiritual progress, like Prabhupada said, when one is fully absorbed in devotion service, he gets disconnected. Means there's no more attachment with the material body. And the nice example Prabhupada gave, very appropriate, of a coconut. So the dry coconut, it gets separated from the shell. But from outside, it still looks like a coconut. It doesn't change. So from outside, a spiritually advanced person will still look like that material body that he's having, but inside he's completely detached from the material body, gross or subtle. He could be internally, he could be very much attached to Krishna, to the service of Krishna, to the thoughts of Krishna. Dhruv Maharaj actually attained this stage of life by constantly discharging devotion service. He has already been described as a Mahabhagavat. For unless one becomes a Mahabhagavat or a first-class pure devotee, these symptoms are not visible. Lord Chaitanya exhibited all these symptoms. Thakur Haridas also exhibited them. And there are many pure devotees who manifested such bodily symptoms. They're not to be imitated. Again, we're not supposed to imitate them because bhakti is something, one's relationship with Krishna. And we cannot cheat Krishna, that's for sure. And let that relationship develop inside us. We don't have to show it or to get a certificate from somebody. Oh, now, Prabhu, you are on this level of Nishtha or Asakti or Ruchi or Bhakti. We don't need any certificate. It's all internal. But when one is actually advanced, these symptoms are exhibited. At that time, it is to be understood that a devotee is materially free. Of course, from the beginning of devotion service, the path of liberation immediately opens, just as a coconut taken from the tree immediately begins to dry. It simply takes some time for the shell and pulp to separate from one another. And an important word in this verse is Mukta Linga. Linga means liberated, and Mukta means liberated, and Linga means the subtle body. When a man dies, he quits his gross body, but the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego carries him to a new body. While existing in the present body, the same subtle body carries him from one stage of life to another. For example, from childhood to boyhood, by mental development. The mental condition of a baby is different from that of a boy. The mental condition of a boy is different from that of a young man. And the mental condition of a young man is different from that of an old man. So at death, the process of changing bodies takes place due to subtle body. The mind, intelligence, and ego carry the soul from one gross body to another body. This is called transmigration of the soul. But there is another stage. When one becomes liberated, even from the subtle body, at that time the living entity is competent and fully prepared to be transferred to the transcendental or spiritual world. So even in this lifetime, our body is changing, but subtle body remains the same. Subtle body keeps on changing in the sense that mental body means we have better intellect. When we grow up, our mind becomes stronger. Many times, the ego also becomes stronger. We get more connected, more attached to the body, or more aware of this body's pains and pleasures. So, same thing at the time of death. There's a abrupt transformation. So this body is completely lost, and we take on a new body. But at the time when both subtle and material gross bodies are no longer needed, no longer required, and we completely grow out of them, that is when we move on to the spiritual world. The description of the bodily symptoms of Sri Dhruva Maharaj makes it apparent that he became perfectly fit to be transferred to the spiritual world. One can experience the distinction between the subtle and gross bodies even daily. In a dream, one's gross body is lying on the bed, while the subtle body carries the soul, the living entity, to another atmosphere. But because the gross body has to be continued, the subtle body comes back and settles in the present gross body. Therefore, one has to become free from the subtle body also. This freedom is known as Mukta Linga. So in a dream, we see so many dreams and we go out of this body, but somehow Krishna's arrangement is that even if the soul is out of this body, going into another through the subtle body into another place, this body still carries on. Because the connection is still there between the gross body and the subtle body, which is carrying the soul. So that is why another place Prabhupada has explained, the yogis. So many, when we do yoga, they get these Ashta Siddhis. So Ashta Siddhi, one of the Siddhis, they can just travel to any part, anywhere. So what the yogis would do, they would go into the forest and sit in meditation, and they would leave the gross body, and in the subtle body, the soul will take them to wherever they want to go, whether to another planet or another country on this planet, they can go. So what they used to do is they would make sure that the present gross body is protected, because they have to come back into that gross body. The time period of that gross body is not over yet. So they would go travel to different place, but then they would come back whenever they want to the present gross body. And of course, those who are commoners, the laymen, they get very mesmerized or very kind of that this is magic and this Yogi Baba is doing magic and whatever. But it's just Ashtasiddhis, one of the Siddhis. But here Dhruva Maharaj, he has transformed himself and he has performed such a great devotion service. Now he's developing the Ashtasattvic Vikara, and now he is ready to go to the spiritual world. Sadadarsha Vimanagryam Nabaso Taradhrava Vibhrajayad Disho Rakapatim Eboditam. As soon as the symptoms of his liberation were manifest, he saw a very beautiful airplane coming down from the sky as a brilliant full moon were coming, illuminating all the 10 directions. There are different levels of acquired knowledge: direct knowledge, knowledge received from authorities, transcendental knowledge, knowledge beyond the senses, and finally, spiritual knowledge. When one surpasses the stage of acquiring knowledge by the descending process, he is immediately situated on the transcendental platform. Dhruv Maharaj, being liberated from the material concept of life, was situated in transcendental knowledge and could perceive the presence of a transcendental airplane which was as brilliant as the full moonlight. This is not possible in the stages of direct or indirect perception of knowledge. Such knowledge is a special favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can, however, rise to this platform of knowledge by the gradual process of advancing in devotion service or Krishna consciousness. So Dhruv Maharaj was on the transcendental plane, and he could see that the plane is coming to take him back to the spiritual world. Of course, that plane, which is transcendental, not visible by our material eyes, so nobody else can see that. So only Dhruv Maharaj, because he had achieved that level of advancement. And Prabhupada gives different examples of different types of knowledge, and so that's what Prabhupada said in the end. One can, however, rise to this platform of knowledge, means a transcendental knowledge, by the gradual process of advancing. Of course, Prabhupada has mentioned in the purport that he got this knowledge by the mercy of Supreme Personality of Godhead. It was a special favor. So once we make progress in bhakti, we also get the mercy of Krishna and mercy of Guru, Srila Prabhupada, that we also get transcendental knowledge to whatever degree we are eligible to. So Dhruv Maharaj saw that airplane coming down, and it was as brilliant as a brilliant full moon illuminating all the 10 directions. So that was the airplane sent for him. So this is the Vishnu Dutas are coming to take him to the spiritual world. So three messengers come. Either Yamarajji sent if we are very sinful. So the Yamdutas come. For the devotees, if they perform the devotion service to such an extent that they are eligible now to go back to the spiritual world, then the Vishnu Dutas come. And if the person is not a devotee, but he has performed many pious activities, then Devdut come to take him to the heavenly planets. Of course, first he has to go to the land of Dharmaraj, who decides which heavenly planet this soul is going to go to and for how long, based on his karma. And then the Devdutas take him. And as we studied, when the Yamdutas come, they beat up the person and they drag him on the road made of hot sand, and the person cries, but no mercy. So Devduta, they don't beat up the person because the person is already very pious. So they take him on an airplane, nice airplane, and maybe they have a nice feast also for him to eat while they're on the way. So being pious, doing all wonderful activities is always pays off. And being devotee is like, there's no more coming back to this material world if we make progress to such an extent that we get separated completely from the material gross and subtle bodies. No more ego, no more connection to this body, only connection with Krishna, Krishna's service, Krishna's Naam. So it's all practical, it's all possible. It's not some theoretical knowledge that Prabhupada has given, which is just not doable. Devotees have done that. Now you might ask, how do you know a devotee has gone back to the spiritual world or is still hovering around? See, many devotees, first of all, recently there have been case of a devotee leaving the body in Vrindavan, proper disciple he was. So definitely who leaves the body in Vrindavan, he goes back to the spiritual world. And many devotees, many Prabhupada disciples, because they had served Prabhupada so much, when they were about to leave the body, and the devotees are around performing kirtan and chanting. So when they're about to leave the body, they immediately open their eyes and they say, "Oh, Prabhupada, you have come." Yes, Prabhupada himself came to take away those devotees. Maybe he came with the Vishnu Dutas, maybe he came alone, I don't know. But the devotees, they open their eyes, "Oh, Prabhupada, you have come," and they left the body. So if Srila Prabhupada has come, definitely they're going back to the spiritual world. So the process is wonderful, whatever process Prabhupada has given us. Even while performing the process, we feel so much of bliss, so much of enjoyment. There's hardly anything else we want to do. And if by mercy of Prabhupada we get completely purified, then we go back to the spiritual world. No more coming back to this material world of problems everywhere, at every step. So we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question. Can we offer Kaner flower to Lord Krishna? A kind of bead if we make it an offer.
What is colored flowers?
Kaner is the yellow oleander. It's a bell-shaped flower. Usually, that Lord Shiva's, we offer it to Lord Shiva, that yellow color. It's like a big long.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I mean, Krishna says patram pushpam phalam toyam. He didn't say which fool.
Anything will do.
I think you can.
Because
I think you can.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in fact, I had asked this to Ganesh Baba, and Baba had said no. In fact, for Jagannath ji and Krishna ji, it is not offered. Because they remain, lots of them are here nearby in the park. But bought them once. But they had said ये वाला नहीं चलता है for कृष्ण जी लॉर्ड शिवा को चलते हैं.
But
so can we do it?
what's so significant? What's the significance of that flower for Shiva only, not for Krishna? I
Just heard that it's
I
a
personally I
poisonous.
don't know. It is poisonous.
I mean, if you go through the Wikipedia, it's the plant is poisonous, but not the flower, I think. And because of like the poison, datura, and all those things offered to Lord Shiva, this is very dear. I mean, very. He likes it a lot. Fond of this flower.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have no idea about all this.
No, actually, in
If
center of this.
Ganesh Baba says don't offer, so don't offer.
This one in Aparajita Prabhuji, we used to because Aparajita is blue in color. So I brought
Hmm.
temple from Hoskar Jagannath temple. I bought the plant, but Baba said नहीं ये भी नहीं चलेगा. This we should not offer that.
Okay,
Hmm.
then don't offer. He would know, definitely he would know better than I do.
Achha. No worries. I have another one to offer him.
Yeah, I mean plenty of flowers.
Yeah. I'm sure he likes marigold though. I mean, Lord Vishnu and Krishna, uh, they like marigold. Marigold is the generic one.
Yeah, you can offer that, I believe.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you all very much. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shila Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you
Jai
very
Shri
much.
Prabhupada.
Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.